All right, Jimmy.
Yeah.
When was the first time you heard punk? And where
You
were you?
You have to talk louder than that.
When was the first time you heard punk?
First time I heard punk. First time I was aware of punk. I'm not sure if I heard it. It was briefly the Sex Pistols on Countdown in 1978. There was a little bit of a clip of God Save the Queen, I think. And I remember hearing, and my mum said, "Oh, those people are no good." And I said, "Why? What did they do wrong?" And she said, "They defecate in rubbish bins." That was my introduction to punk.
Yeah, right.
I went, "They sound cool."
How old were you then?
8 years
right.
old. Yeah, that's
So,
my first awareness.
How did that play out? Like after you heard the Pistols on
Well,
TV?
then the next year when I was 9, I heard the Clash.
Yeah.
London Calling, and that was all because it was a hit in Australia. And the video was on Countdown all the time, and or bits of it. They never played the entirety of any punk music on Countdown. They just played like grabs of the film.
Yeah.
And then going to New York with my mum, and on Broadway, the Clash were doing 3 nights, and we walked past it, and they were playing. All these cops were there, and there was this big riot. Ended up ensuing after we walked past.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my awareness, but it was from other people, I guess, giving me cassettes, like friends of my sister, who were older and had been to university, or high school in Perth, Hollywood High School, which was the cool high school where all the Skins and the punks and all that in the 80s.
Yeah.
All the tribes were hanging out, and so my sister's friend moved to our town in WA in Albany and brought all these cassettes and just gave me so I could hear the Jam, the Clash, the Specials, all that sort of stuff. And
when did you come across the Saints?
The Saints was pretty early on too. My mum was an art teacher, so she had art students come around to the house to do drawings and stuff, and so one of them was into Syd Barrett and the Saints, and he would tell me about the Saints, and I think I can't remember if he gave me a cassette or something, but they were on my radar pretty early on, the Saints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've found punk at about 8 or 9.
Well, that was my awareness. I wasn't listening to it. It was an awareness of what it was.
Yeah.
You know, like. And
what were you listening to before that?
The Beatles. I was just obsessed with the Beatles.
Yeah.
And Creedence. I liked Creedence when I was a kid. Yeah. What about you?
What about me?
What was your
first time
your punk inception?
It would have been my uncle, who he was a young man in St Kilda in the 80s, and I remember when I was about 14, I went and stayed with him at his place in Cheltenham. He's a plasterer. I was doing a bit of labouring work for him on the holidays.
He had the records.
He had everything, and he got a like those shopping baskets you get at the supermarket. He had one of them.
Yeah.
And he just filled it with CDs, and he just handed it to me and said, "Right, you need to get an education."
Yeah.
And in that basket was Beast of Bourbon.
Yeah.
Hendrix, but Hendrix just playing blues.
Yeah.
And God.
Mm-hmm.
Bored. Powder Monkeys, Cosmic Psychos.
So that real Victorian sound.
Yeah, all the Melbourne bands, you know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else we had on there, like maybe Archie Roach.
Yeah.
Just a good selection of stuff that I would never have come across in Yarrawonga.
Yeah.
You know, the best that we could find in Yarrawonga was like Red Hot Chili Peppers or something.
Yeah.
So he really kind of like transformed my brain in an instant with it when he handed me that.
And it's important because it does take someone like that. to 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 share that knowledge with a young person and to pass it on and to get them into music. Like, if that didn't happen, we'd be screwed, you know?
Well,
like,
if I didn't have that, if my uncle didn't do that, I don't know how. I mean, I probably would have found it at some point, but I was at a very formative age. Where he caught me at the right time.
The grey matter is absorbing everything. Same with me. It's like 14, and I was just soaking everything up at that age, and same thing. Just luckily knew the right people that could put me on the right track. Yeah.
I was pretty lucky. My parents had quite an impressive record collection, and one Christmas, my mother bought my dad a record player for Christmas, and he hadn't had a record player for a number of years, and so all his records came out of the shed. Yeah. And then it was on like Donkey Kong, you know. I was just in the record room. There was a room at the back of the house. We lived in this.
So you became obsessed with it?
Yeah. I became obsessed with Dylan. Yeah. Obsessed with the Stones and the Doors and you know.
Me too. At like 15,
all those hippie bands, you know.
Yeah, the Doors really got me too when I was about 15, and you know, I love that music. And I'll fight with anyone to the death who says they're shit.
Yeah. Fuck those guys.
Yeah, fuck those guys. They're just intimidated because it's clever music. Yeah.
So after you sort of exposed to punk, how long was it before you started like thinking about doing it yourself? And
well, I started with it. I really got into the Jam and that. Just before they broke up, is it working?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah. And I got into the Jam just as they were breaking up. It's like their last single. I bought their last single, The Beat Surrender.
Yeah.
I fucking loved the Jam and that high energy sort of thing. And I don't know, I like that UK thing. I didn't go for the American punk so much.
Like
I went
Ramones and stuff like that.
Yeah, Ramones sort of came a bit later, 17 or something. Yeah. But when I was about 13, 14, it was like the Jam and all that English stuff. I loved all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'd try and write songs that were similar to that kind of energy. But I couldn't find any musicians to play it that my age. No one could play it. Like, all the musicians I knew could only play 2 or 3 notes, and they couldn't really play a structured song. Mm-hmm. So I just let all that shit go, and then eventually when I was 15... went to school with a guy, and we shared the English punk thing, and we both played guitar, so we started a band. Yeah. So we just started learning all covers of punk stuff, and Pistols, Clash, and you know, AC/DC, just high energy stuff. Yeah. Celibate Rifles, Radio Birdman,
cool.
All that kind of stuff. Even T-Rex, all sorts of stuff. Talking Heads. Yeah. Just energy stuff, and that was the first band, and just sort of grew from there, I reckon. And because I was in an isolated country town, you used to have to go to the city to buy fanzines. Yeah. And bring them back to your town and read about what was going on. You didn't hear anything, you just used to read about it. And then every now and then someone would go to the city, you know, it's 500 kilometres to the city. Someone would go to the city and buy a record and bring it back, and you'd all go around to their house to listen to it. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's like Lime Spider's first single, Slave Girl. Yeah. Like, we were all like, someone's got Slave Girl, and we'll all go around their house and put it on and like, play it again.
So exciting.
Yeah. So it was like that initially, until we all, you know, moved to the city and could go to record shops every week. Yeah. The isolation thing, I mean...
Was that 78s? Was 78s the big record
store?
78s
and Dada's in Perth. Yeah.
Didn't 78 shut down recently?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
I've got a feeling they've closed the doors.
I can't remember which one I used to go. I think I used to go to Dada's. And
I remember that place.
They were really, like, up themselves because it was such a niche market. Like, it was the too cool for school crew, you know? Right. So you'd walk in and they'll kind of look at you up and down, you know, sussing you out. Yeah. and but I didn't care too much for it. Didn't let that worry me. But that was back in the day where there was a lot of bootlegs and all sorts of albums, some good music in the 80s, that period. Now, I think my first sort of excursion into unusual music, like buying it on vinyl, was Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds' first album, From Her to Eternity, and some Scientist stuff. And I hated the records. I thought, these fucking guys suck.
Really?
You know? Yeah, when I first played them, I thought they sucked because it just sounded
so abrasive.
So abrasive. And
yeah.
But then I warmed to it.
Yeah.
It took a while.
Yeah.
You know, it took a few months of listening, and I went, this is amazing.
Penny dropped.
Penny dropped, yeah. At first I thought it was terrible because it didn't make any sense to my young mind. You know.
So was Salmon active over there at that time, or was he?
I think he was here and there. He was floating between Sydney and Perth.
Yeah,
I can't remember seeing him in the 80s over there. He must have been in Sydney. No, I didn't see him.
What was some of the bands like when you started playing around and stuff? What were some of the local bands in Perth?
The local bands like Stems. Used to see them. I saw them a couple of times in the 80s. Local bands, kind of strange. I don't know. We used to go see more touring bands than local bands,
right?
Because we were playing.
Yeah.
By the time I moved to the city, we were playing gigs anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll just watch the bands you're playing with. And there was a real hardcore scene and a thrash scene and a pop scene, 60s pop scene was really big in Perth, that scene. And we were kind of somewhere in between, like Detroit rock, sort of rock and roll kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm just going to stop it so I can grab a beer.
So what was, so you're from country town as well and moved to the city. So when did you move to the city?
I moved to Melbourne when I was 17.
Yeah.
Finished high school. I was in a place called Wangaratta.
Yeah.
Which is sort of near the Murray River.
Yeah.
I grew up in Yarrawonga, which is on the Murray, but then in year 9 I ended up at Wangaratta High School because it's a much better education over there. I was at this backward Catholic school with like 120 people, and it was just fucked. And so this girl Natasha and we basically went on strike and went home and told our parents that we're not gonna put up with this shit anymore, and we said
it sounds familiar. Were you a Catholic kid?
No, well, my parents weren't religious at all, but my mother had sort of a misguided, probably like a petty bourgeois idea that you'd get a better education at a Catholic school.
Yeah, the private school.
Which was just
bullshit.
Completely the opposite.
Yeah, it was the fucking opposite, man, because I did the same. I went to a Catholic school and, the cliche, I got asked to leave. And so I went to the state school, which was infinitely better. Yeah. And you could call the teachers by their first names. They didn't hit you. They didn't bash you. Yeah. They didn't threaten you.
It was for me. It was a revelation when I got out of the Catholic school in Yarrawonga. I went to Wangaratta, and within the first week of being there, I got asked to join a band. Yeah,
that's where it all happened for me too. Like finally, like in the
all of a sudden it was on,
Yeah, and you met the right people, the wilder, kind of cooler people.
Yeah, the teachers sort of took you seriously, and I actually really enjoyed high school at Wangaratta. Like I was very lucky. I had some pretty cool teachers. One teacher who I did like Greek classics and like history and history of revolutions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And English literature and stuff, and I really got into it.
Yeah.
But I was smoking a lot of pot at the time.
Me too. I was disappearing every lunchtime.
Yeah, every lunchtime we'd go up to the Warby Ranges.
Yeah, and it's homegrown bush stuff, so it was really nice.
Yeah, I was stoned a lot, but I managed to finish year 12, and I got a pretty good score, and it got me into uni.
Yeah.
And then I moved down here, got a lift with a guy to Melbourne. I just had my backpack, and I didn't even have a guitar or anything. I just had just a backpack and a few tins of tomatoes and stuff.
Just
and
did it.
I had a lead that my mate Jimmy Noddle was working at the Dan O'Connell Hotel.
Yeah. So just went and seen him.
And so I just rocked up there. I didn't have a phone or anything. I just rocked up, and sure enough, there he was. And so, yeah, I had a place to crash for a while, and then I just sort of made it in Melbourne. I ended up working on the docks night shift.
Yeah, right. Straight into it. Wow. What kind of year? What kind of era is this?
This was around
because we're about 10 years. I'm about 12 years older than you, right? So we get.
Yeah, this was around 2001, 2002.
Yeah. Okay. So,
yeah. I think I moved to Melbourne in 2001.
So it's a different time. When I was a kid, and moving when I was 17, 18, I was actually 18 when I moved to Perth, when I got the permission from my parents to leave home. I think they were pretty happy about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get this guy out of town. He's got to, he's going to go to jail or something. I was in lots of trouble.
Yeah.
And so it was a good thing to get out into the big world. And
I didn't believe it for a second.
Yeah, oh god! But at that time, WA was a police state, so I got arrested for you'd get arrested for fucking farting down the street, you know, like
it was the same in Wangaratta.
They'd arrest you for anything,
yeah,
and so I had this record by the time I was 17, which got wiped as soon as I was turned 18. But it was really a horrible experience actually to be constantly getting locked up, and your parents have to come and fucking get you, and it was horrible. But so anyway. Digress.
Well, it was similar for me in Wangaratta because like the police were really full on there.
Yeah,
and
once you're on their radar, you're fucked. They'll just keep getting you.
Well, they'd send all the rookies up from Melbourne to get a bit of practice. They'd send them all up to Wangaratta because Wangaratta was like the hub of the district, and that was like the main police station in the district. So they'd send all the rookies up there, and the rookies would just be prowling the streets bored, and like
it's bored.
We'd be like 16 walking down the street with a beer in our hand, and next thing you know, you're in the lockup for the night.
Yeah, it's so wrong. And you get developing a record, and they should be supporting kids and trying to get them to do other things, and with their music, if they see you've got talent, like instead of arresting you and challenging you every move. But the thing is, I guess you're 2002. I was 1988, and at that time was the Labor government, so you could be on the dole and travel around on the dole. It was a really good fucking time. So everyone I knew was on. You
didn't have to go into like a job network place.
No, you didn't have to do anything like that. You could actually like travel around and just drop off your dole form wherever.
That's cool.
And or put it under the door on a Friday afternoon, and you'd get by Monday or Tuesday you'd have your money. It wasn't so rigid, so you could travel and you could kind of, and life was a bit cheaper then, so you could kind of survive.
On the dole,
If you had a bunch of years living in a house, everyone could survive on the dole. I didn't know many people with jobs.
Yeah.
At that time, and
it was
a really cool time.
Even in 2002, I remember like you could survive on the dole.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Whereas now it's impossible.
No, you need 3 jobs or something.
It's just impossible.
Yeah, I feel sorry for musicians who are starting off now because it's an expensive hobby, and you need 3 jobs just to fucking pay your rent, let alone sustain your career.
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, it's fucked. Yeah. I don't know. So, where did we go from that? So, what was your first real band, and what was when did it kind of click for you in Melbourne?
My first real band. Well, I don't know if you call it a real band, but the first band that
this before Greta Mob and all that.
Yeah, way before that.
Way before that.
I had this band.
But Greta Mob was like your first real big one.
Greta Mob was the first proper band.
Yeah. All right, talk about Greta Mob. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, well, I was touring Europe at the time. I think it was probably around 2011.
Yeah.
And I was touring Europe as a producer of electronic music. So I managed to get a bit of a vibe going in Europe with this bass music that I was making. I got I got really into Detroit techno and early UK dubstep and industrial music and jungle and drum and bass.
Yeah. What year is this kind of?
I first sort of really got into it not long after I moved to Melbourne.
So 2003.
I went to some parties on the docks because I was working down the docks, you know. So
yeah.
And I was working with a Croatian guy who had a warehouse just on the Maribyrnong River, and we'd go to his place for lunch, like at 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Because we'd start work at 6 in the
evening so you're doing the night shift.
Yeah. So we'd go to his warehouse for lunch, and they were just sort of setting it up, and they were starting to put on raves and stuff. And he handed me a because I was just into, you know, punk and whatever. I didn't know much about electronic music, but he handed me a record from what's that fucking they're really Daft Punk Homework.
Yeah.
And he handed me the record. He said, "You need to go home and do your homework."
Yeah.
and I did, and I got really overnight. Became obsessed with electronic music, and I started to make it almost immediately.
Yeah.
And just sort of researched how you make it and how you get drum machines and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I got really into it. And
you got into the technical side.
I got into the technical side of it, but also got into I like the mantra thing of it, like the repetitive rhythm, you know. And I was fascinated by Jamaican sound system culture.
Around
the same time that I started getting into King Tubby.
Yeah. I love all that stuff too.
And
like
really got right.
There's something romantic about that scene, you know, the whole sound system thing and then the whole dub thing.
Well, I would cite King Tubby as like
I love Black Uhuru.
Chief influences.
Black Uhuru. Is it Uhuru?
Yeah.
Black Uhuru, sorry.
Yeah, right.
They're one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got well into dub. I was smoking a lot of pot, and then got into electronic music, and that's really I just sort of abandoned rock and roll for a few years, and I got right into this thing, and it was really cool. And I was there at the early days of dubstep, like in Sydney, and started making dubstep early on, and then it just blew up, and it got me to Europe, you know, like, and I was playing these big festivals and stuff, and
got you out of here. That's pretty amazing. I mean, it's so hard to get the fuck out of Australia. It's really tough for bands to find a way out.
Yeah, I was really lucky, like
bands and artists as well.
I was really lucky. We got booked for these festivals in Croatia and Berlin. I went and lived in Berlin on and off for a couple of years. Yeah. And I played this festival in Croatia, and sort of a roundabout way of saying how Greater Mob came about. But I was playing this festival and playing in front of, like hundreds, thousands of people, and I just sort of looked at my laptop and I had, because I would play live and I had all my guitar pedals and putting it all through Ableton Live and stuff, and I just sort of went, I'm fucking bored of this, like mid show. Yeah, okay, and I said to realised the energy was wearing off. Yeah, I said to my girlfriend at the time, Sophie, I said, I'm bored of this. I'm done. And she's like, what are you talking about? You're on the rise. Like, this is, you could do this. You could travel the world being a DJ. You know? And I said, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm over it. I want to play rock and roll. Yeah. And I went back to Berlin and more of a visceral. Yeah, within a week, I'd put a band together of sorts, and I booked a studio, and we went in, and that was the first Greater Mob album. Okay, the Greater Mob. And I'd already sort of had a few songs kicking around. Yeah. And because Spencer P. Jones told me about the Greater Mob, I remember he said, "You gotta hear this band, the Greater Mob," and but I didn't get a chance to see the band. But I remember Spencer championing. Is that the word? Yeah, championing. Yeah. He was your music, and he was in our corner big time. Yeah. He was in both our corners
for a period of time there.
Yeah, so Greeter Mob happened, and that was a wild experience.
Yeah.
We were a great band, you know, vicious, lethal band.
Yeah.
You know, and we had sort of the Joe Strummer thing of destroy the opposition, and like we had this real militant approach to it. Like every gig we'd go into, we wanted to like make the other bands like
be the best,
go home and feel like what are they doing with their lives, kind of thing.
Yeah,
we were so determined,
and that's the way I think you should always go into music.
We were in Sydney too, but we saw ourselves. We were a Melbourne band in Sydney.
Yeah, okay, you were in Sydney.
Yeah. Half of the band were from Melbourne, but all of the bands that we were influenced by are from Melbourne. You know.
Yeah.
So we would come down to Melbourne and play more often than we would play in Sydney. But whenever we played in Sydney, Sydney was just fucking atrocious. Like
that's why I left Sydney because
without sounding like a wanker, like there just wasn't anything that was like.
Well, that's why
vicious. Apart from the crusty punk band, there was nothing that.
I left Sydney in 2003 because I was down to 6 gigs a year, from 50 in the 90s
really
to 6 gigs. I went, this is pathetic. So I just started working in recording in Melbourne, and you know, with Gareth Lydiard and a few other people like that, working with these guys and recording songs, and they were producing it for me. But it was like time to get the fucking hell out of there, you know. Because it's depressing. Yeah, it was a hard town, but Greeter Mob did well in Sydney because there was no other bands like us, you know. Yeah. And so we were sort of on our own a bit. There was other bands like Holy Soul and... Oh, I love the Holy Soul. They're favourites of mine. There's a handful of other cool bands that had the same kind of idea. Yeah. But, we didn't feel welcome. Like, we played warehouse parties. No, you didn't feel... Even like when we... But we'd come down here and we'd be welcomed with open arms. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even... when I moved here and started a band and then went back to Sydney playing at the Hopeton Hotel, like suddenly, like, because I felt like, you know, like I lived across the road from the fucking Hopeton. This is a Sydney magazine, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It is. I'm just about to hang shit on that. But I felt like I was... The Hopeton shut down when I was living there. Yeah, and look, I played there so many times, but I remember going back... Was Rock Against Work still going? No, that was Rock Against Work was going. That was at the Hopeton, wasn't it? In the early 90s, like 92. I saw X, B Suburban, bands like that at Tuesday nights. It was Tuesday nights, Rock Against... It wasn't even nights, it was the afternoon, Rock Against Work. Yeah. Hence the title. Yeah. And, I saw some good bands there. But going back, I went back years later, and I just felt like, wow, I don't feel respected here, you know? Like, I'm not getting any respect here, you know? You know, it's just like, yeah, you got 30 minutes and you're a support band, so you get a Coke, not a beer. You know, I was just like, fucking hell, man. I lived across the road for fucking years from you bastards. Yeah. You know, sitting at the bar for years and get treated like shit. Sorry, Sydney. That's my little bitch. Look, to be fair, by and large, I enjoyed my time in Sydney. I mean, it must be a nightmare up there now with all the laws and stuff. But yeah, and like it was the same thing when we were playing. It was the same thing when Greeter Mob were active. There wasn't any venues. Yeah. So you'd end up playing warehouse parties all the time. But as a result of the draconian, oppressive... Everything goes underground. Laws, there was a really healthy underground. Yeah, Sydney will always have the underground scene, and people miss that here. Because people are very competitive with Sydney and Melbourne. And it's not that Sydney people aren't competitive. No, Sydney people don't give a fuck about. Don't give a fuck. They go, oh, Melbourne's cool. Like, I wish it was a bit good place more like to hang out. Whereas I find Melbourne people have a bit of an elitist approach to Sydney, but Sydney's actually a fucking cool place. It's great. I lived there for 10 years. And, I loved it. You wouldn't get me living there again, but yeah. I played the big day out there with the band called Harpoon, and I was in Nunchucker Superfly, and we toured all around the country, and like I had a great time in the 90s in Sydney. Like, really living the dream, you know. But yeah,
before the Olympics.
Yeah,
I think it was the Olympics that fucked Sydney. That was like the linchpin.
It was before that. You know what it was?
Pokies.
It was John Howard getting in '97.
Yeah.
Everything just went fucking pear-shaped real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pause it.
Mm.
All right, Jimmy. So I'm interested to know when you sort of realised that you could be a songwriter. Like when was the Damascus moment for you when you went, all right, I can do this?
It wasn't like, it was a moment. It was when I saw Ian Ryland play at the Excelsior Hotel on Favreau Street, and he was off his fucking chops. Like, I'm seriously, you know, I walked in, it was a Sunday session, and I said, what's wrong with him? And someone said, he dropped an E and drank a bottle of vodka. He was off chops.
Yeah.
And he would have been 50 years old at that point.
Yeah.
Early 2000s. And I walked in, and he just saw me and put his guitar over me.
Right.
And said, you play. And he just wandered off.
Oh, wow.
So I just started playing.
Yeah.
And it was like this, getting the, you know, like the...
ordained or something.
Being ordained, yeah. It was, but it scared me because I saw how out of it he was, and I went, if I'm going to... I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, like, I'm either going to pursue it as a songwriter and musician, and go for it, or not.
Okay.
And that was the...
And you were 30.
I was 30 years old, and already kind of like, I felt like I was washed up by that point, because in my 20s I did pretty well with bands, and by that point I didn't feel like anyone was that interested. I felt old at 30, and
so before that point you didn't really see yourself as a songwriter as such, more just a rock and roll playing in bands.
Yeah, no, there was. I did the songwriting thing too on the side, and I was just starting to get good at it, but not great, you know.
Yeah.
And I'd written songs before, because with bands and big heavy rock stuff, it's a different way of writing. When you're sitting down with an acoustic and you're writing a song, it's a different thing altogether. And so yeah, I just started getting sort of practicing that sort of stuff. And then I moved into a bed sit in Potts Point, and that changed everything. I lived in this bed sit, $120, with $1 million view from the roof of the bridge and the harbour. Yeah. You know, living next to millionaires, and the guy from the Reels lived next door to me. Yeah. The singer, Dave Mason. And, you know, it was interesting. And so I just locked myself away pretty much and wrote 3 albums worth of shit in a year. Yeah. And that was the breakthrough for me. Yeah. That I could write. Sure. So I was 30, 31. Yeah, wow. Yeah. So it kind of came late, the songwriting thing. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Before that, it was more rock and roll stuff. Yeah, but yeah, back to the Ian Ryland thing, and then that's when I decided. I walked away from that gig going like, is this what you really want to do with your life? This is dangerous. Yeah. You know, there's so many pitfalls and addictions, and so I was a bit afraid, and then I decided I was going to move to Melbourne from all of that and just pursue it. Sure. So that's what happened. Yeah. Yeah, righty, eh? Mm. It really was a pivotal moment. It was just like, are you going to do this? You might end up like that. You're definitely going to end up like that. When you looked at Ryland in that state, you know. Yeah, it scared me. Did it shock? Like, did you think, okay, I don't want that? Or, I was afraid, because I thought, well, this is going to maybe shorten my lifespan, all that kind of stuff. Maybe I want to do something different from music, and maybe, you know, have a family, all that stuff, you know. There was, I guess, those kind of things were going through my head, yeah. But then I just went, nah, I have to pursue it. Yeah. And made my mind up then and there on that night when I was walking home after that gig. Really? Yeah. Wow. I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And so I ended up moving to Melbourne. Yeah, right. To pursue it, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Ian. I don't know if I should thank him or not. Bless his soul. Yeah, God bless him. He was a real rock and roller. But those boys, they went hard, and you know, I haven't got that kind of what you call it, like I can't go as hard as those guys went. You know, it's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also they come from a background of legendary status, you know, and I didn't see myself as having really any background. But now, 20 odd years later, I see my background because I'm 50 this year, and I can see my history and go, oh, that's cool. You know, there's a real, you know, from Harpoon, Nunchucker Superfly to the Drones to you know, other bands I formed and then started doing my own records. I can see the progression and go, well, that's pretty cool. That's a good background. But at the time, I didn't feel I had much background, and even though I did, I guess, but it was just too close and too soon, and you know, like coming here and meeting Spencer and Andrew McGee, Spencer P. Jones and Andrew McGee, who propelled me into releasing records overseas and in Australia. Those two guys pushed me, and then, you know, to recently producing Violent Femmes, you know, their Spencer cover, they gave me production credit on that, and recording with Alejandro Escovedo last week, and I see that as go, wow, that's, you know, this I've come a long way.
It's pretty cool.
Come a long way, you know. It's like, so I could brag about it.
No, you should be proud of it.
I am proud of it, and it's like it's taken a lot of work, you know, and a lot of don't know how many years off your life. You know?
Yeah.
But, no. Yeah, it's the. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's the whole journey thing, and just getting experiences under your belt as you go along. And you think nothing's happening, but things are actually happening as you're working away slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where to for you from here? Like you went from the Greta Mob, and now
Greta Mob sort of imploded in a haze of meth and bad behaviour.
Yeah.
And we sort of split up, and it was pretty sad. But then I started playing again and got this band together, and started
Rhyece O'Neill and the Narodniks.
Yeah, started going out on my own, you know, just playing solo. Just in small pubs and shit around New South Wales.
It's getting busy, Dylan's and playing and recording.
And it all just sort of evolved, and Kylie, Jade, and I started playing gigs together. Kind of encouraged her to start singing, and after a while, she became indispensable, and we just toured around together.
Hi, Carly, if you're listening to this.
Hey, Carly. And she really pushed me to get back into music, because I was pretty down about.
After the Greta
Mob kind of exploded in like a whole like pointless drama.
Yeah,
and
as bands do usually. I mean, and to a point, and then you get over it and go, well, you just got to put a good bunch of people together that aren't going to implode on you.
Yeah. And fast forward to now, we just got back from touring Europe, which was, to be honest, Jimmy, it was equal parts incredible, equal parts absolute disaster.
Yeah.
You know? Like
extreme highs and extreme lows.
Yeah, the band pretty much broke up, like on tour.
Yeah.
And now the band that we have now is radically different.
Yeah. Well, it's the test, you know. Touring Europe's the test for a band. Like, if the band can't, if it doesn't work there, it's not going to work, and usually the band will fall apart after the tour. I had one band fall apart, the Dirty Skirt Band, our first tour of Europe, and by the time we got home, it was over. We were done. It's like, no, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, well,
even though we're still friends to this day, but it just wasn't working.
Look, the shows were great. Like, there wasn't a bad show. Like,
same here. The shows were good, but it was just this weight of it. There was tension.
Yeah, there was a lot of tension before we got on the plane. There's a lot for various reasons, and money was a big pain in the ass. And,
yeah, that's the big one.
And we didn't have a tour manager, and
you can't go to Europe expecting to make money unless you're a really big band. It's like,
it's
no way you're going to.
Surprising what people expect, though.
Yeah.
That they reveal themselves afterwards, and they expect all this stuff, but they fully know that.
Well, you can run yourself into the ground in Europe trying to make money, and I didn't want to have that approach, play every night. I went the opposite way and would play 3 nights or maybe 4 nights a week and have a few days off so I could hang around and, take in the sights. I really don't like the whole playing for 34 days straight. I mean, that would kill me.
That's what we. That's essentially what we did, and it was too much.
Too much,
and not enough money, and logistically, it was all over the shop. So many things went wrong. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
I was out of control. Fucking, I'll put my hand up and say I was out of control.
Yeah.
Loose, drunk all the time, just.
Did you find it stressful?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, like the pressure of having to manage all these people and manage all their expectations, and being in a relationship that was sort of on the tail end.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
It just wasn't. It wasn't. It was a bit of a perfect storm.
Yeah, exactly. And being exhausted on top of that, then.
Because before the tour, I was working 2 jobs, working my ass off in building sites and saving every penny and rehearsing the band every week and really working my ass off. And then when finally the tour happened, I just sort of let my hair down, and it was I didn't really have anyone to sort of lean on. I really understand the value of a tour manager now.
Yeah.
That's why people have tour managers, because you go out on stage and you give everything you absolutely have, your whole soul, you expose yourself. And then the only thing to do really after that, once you've done that, is to sort of numb the brutality.
You need someone there who's going to be that anchor, because it's so exhausting, and you need someone there to do that. Like for me, it was my wife Kate was always the anchor. I did 1 tour without her, and it was okay, but it was just there was no anchor, no one keeping everyone together. We're all just drifting off into other, there was no. It was organised, but there was the camaraderie was kind of breaking down a little, and everyone was drifting off. And I mean, it's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing to do.
Oh man, I spent 3 nights in jail in Barcelona. A fucking.
I heard.
I thought it was a good idea to let off a fire extinguisher in this hotel that we were at. It was funny at the time, but then the aftermath wasn't too funny.
Was that in Barcelona?
That was in.
No, that was
Mont Blanc.
Mont Blanc, yeah, that's right.
So I fucked up. Got drunk and just carried on. It was it was all blonding. It was all in. It was all in jest. Yeah. It was all fun for me. I just thought it was funny at the time.
Yeah, Miguel.
And no one fucking saw the joke.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So it was one of those
when you
ones.
think it's funny and 10 other people don't, it's probably not funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Oops.
Yeah, I was out of control. I lost my mind that night. But
I've screwed up.
You got to learn from it.
Yeah, you learn from it. Your mistakes, definitely on tour. Like I screwed up a gig once in France. I was too out of it to really perform, and it was really embarrassing, to tell you the truth, because I kind of lost it and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Half the crowd thought that was the show.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And the other half were just like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
So I learnt from that about getting rest and making sure you've got somewhere to go and lie down in the afternoon before you go to sound check and all that stuff, making sure you're sorted. That was a big learning curve for me, because it could turn disastrous in the space of a couple of hours if you're not careful.
It was never an issue for me, the gigs themselves, because I'm pretty disciplined when it comes to the gig. I never play a gig pissed, very rarely.
Yeah, well, I've done it a couple of times, but it's something...
It's always after the gig that's a drama.
Yeah, okay, you're the after gig drama. I'm
yeah.
like the during the gig drama.
No. I'm pretty straight and narrow until after.
Oh, look, I used to after a show, just try to unwind in a really relaxing way, not get too fired up. I think is the thing. Or because you've got to do it again the next day.
Yeah.
But easier said than done. So where were we?
So
we're in Europe.
So tell me how you came to know Spencer Jones.
It's funny. I've got a recording of him telling 3 different versions of how we met. And I can't really remember, to tell you the truth, but it was over a period of time, and he can't remember either. But it was he couldn't remember. God, where was it? I think it was in Sydney, supporting Cow Penalty, Spencer P. Jones and Cow Penalty, and got talking to him and that. And then we sort of became friends from then on in, and I made a recording with the Drones, a demo, the first lineup of the Drones. And they moved to Melbourne. I was in Sydney, but they gave him a copy of that, and it had one of my songs on it called Sweet Casualty. And I remember playing at a show, Vic on the Park, supporting Cow Penalty in Sydney. And I was like, Spencer, I was a fan, since I was a kid of the Johnnies and the Beasts. And I was playing this song, Sweet Casualty, and he was singing along. He was sitting at the table in front of me singing the lyrics. And I'm like, how the fuck does he know the lyrics to that song? Now I figured it out. They must have given him that Drones demo. And excuse me. And he liked it. And that's what became friends. So he treated me as an equal, like a songwriter.
Yeah.
And started talking to me and ringing me up and saying, come and meet me, and have a chat and da-da-da. So it sort of started like that. And I got a lift with him to Melbourne in the Tarago, sitting in the back, and he was in the front. And I was leaning over the front talking to him for like 8 hours.
Yeah.
Like just picking his brain
about
playing in the gun club and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And just talking, stories. And the band were happy because I was keeping him busy, because he's usually grumpy.
Yeah.
And, we'll get the shit. So I was keeping him busy. We had a carton of beer, and I'd scored some pot before we left Sydney. So we had joints, beer, music, all the way. It was great, like down the freeway. So that's how we sort of met, I reckon. What about you and Spence?
I can't really remember how I met him. I don't know, like somehow he got hold of a Greeter Mob record. Our manager at the time might have sent it to him or something. I don't know, but I just remember getting a call from our manager Henry, and he said, I just got off the phone to Spencer P. Jones. He's a real fan of the band. And not long after that, it was pretty hazy, like I can't really remember, but like
so it's a few years ago.
Yeah, not long after that we started doing gigs with him.
Yeah.
And then he got us on supporting the Beast of Bourbon. And then pretty much after that gig, every time we played in Melbourne, he played with us.
Yeah.
So he liked you. He basically joined the band.
Yeah. He loved you.
And it was the same thing, like I wanted to learn from him, and I think he was, saw a bit of talent in me, and
well, he was a teacher. He wanted to teach you.
He really wanted to.
If he saw a student in you, he would go for you and like pin you down and show you chords or whatnot.
It was really great like that. But
He did that for the Holy Soul too, you know,
Yeah.
Trent and the Holy Soul.
Yeah,
he really
yeah.
went for Trent. And
That's how I met Trent, actually. I think the first time I met Trent was at a Spencer gig in Sydney.
yeah.
Yeah. He's a great songwriter.
Yeah.
The last time I saw him, I think I was fucking off my head. I was an arsehole to him, I think. At the Town Hall Hotel, I was just a dick. I was probably on meth.
Oh, the Town Hall. God. That's the... Where shit is going to go down, it'll go down at the Brown Hall.
I would have been on meth. I would have been, pissed. That's the last
I
time
can't stand that place. Like, there's so much trouble there.
I really like Trent. I really like his band.
Yeah.
Are they still going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays in a band called Gary David now, Bob Blunt's band
from
Sydney. So he plays guitar in that. We just played a show with them a few weeks ago at the Tote Hotel in Collingwood. And, he's still doing his thing.
So what's next for you, Jimmy? What are you doing?
Well, I'm just sort of getting ready to record an album in maybe October, so writing songs and trying to rehearse them with the band, get things sort of sorted and choose which sort of songs we want to do or write some more. So not playing much live. I'm doing a bit of solo stuff again. I haven't done solo stuff in 5 years, and so I played the first one with you at the Yarra in 5 years, and then the second one with Alejandro Escovedo, and that was great at the Thornbury Theatre.
Yeah.
In Thornbury, in Melbourne, and that was fantastic, and it really revived. It was a pivotal moment for me, actually. He really injected me with some good energy, that guy. Like, he he had a good vibe about him, and he was curious about what you did, and he's a big gun, you know, and he's, Bruce Springsteen loves him and all that, but he's a very down-to-earth, real gentleman, and curious about people. And I'd had a hard week. My friend had passed away, and I was at his funeral 2 days before, so I was feeling pretty ratty, but I walked out of there feeling positive.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at, just getting ready to record in October, hopefully, and at Sound Park in Melbourne, and do some solo stuff in between, because it's fun again. Like, I hated it for a while. It just
when I first met you, you were like completely off playing solo.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
I was trying to get you to do some gigs in there, but
it'd give me a headache.
I
couldn't do it. It'd actually give me a headache even thinking about it. Let alone doing it, because I just got tired of the songs.
Sure.
And been singing a lot of the songs over the years, and the same songs. So I just wanted to leave all those songs alone and do something different.
Yeah.
And just let them be, because they were good songs, and now I'm going back to those songs, which is really cool. I haven't played them in years.
Let them breathe for a bit.
Yeah, so you're not tired of them, and same old.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, where are you at now? What's next?
Yeah, there's heaps going on.
I forgot to mention, I should mention this, Nunchucker Superfly, the band I was in 95, with the Hard-Ons guys, Blackie and Ray, and the drummer from Mass Appeal, Peter Allen. The recording we did in 95 is going to get released, looks like next year, so
cool.
20 odd years later, and we might do some shows.
Yeah, great.
So it's hardcore kind of punk music, and I just sing, I don't play guitar, and so we've been talking about next year doing some shows and releasing it as an album.
That's great.
So that's 20-something years later from Sydney.
Yeah, holy shit.
90s, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, I just
you're right.
Throw that one in there.
I remember, I think I saw Nunchucker Superfly in the 90s, like maybe at a big day out or something. Or
97, 96?
Maybe I was pretty
97?
young.
That was me singing.
Yeah. I vaguely recall seeing Nunchucker Superfly.
Yeah, we played at the big day out, and there was like a couple of thousand people there. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was a big crowd, and it was our last gig, and we decided we were going to break up. So I put a stocking on my head, because I didn't want to be recognised.
Well,
I had a denim jacket on with no shirt underneath when in my thinner years. And but it was fucking. It's like we got backstage and we're like, why are we breaking up?
Yeah,
This is fucking killer. We just fucking destroyed it. It was insane.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, 20 odd years later.
Yeah, it's cool that it's coming out.
Yeah.
Is it coming out on a label or what's happening? Or?
Well, I can't really. I mean, maybe I think Time. Is it Time or Tim Records from Brisbane?
Yeah, he makes the guitar pedals.
Yeah, I think they're interested in doing it in
Yeah.
Australia. So hopefully,
Yeah, cool.
and maybe overseas with maybe Beast Records or not sure. It's not really my call because I didn't really write the songs. I was the 23rd singer they tried out, and I just did it as a favour to the drummer because I was a friend of his, and he rang me up and said, "Can you come and fucking try out?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was the 23rd guy.
Right.
They just had all these guys like who thought they were punks before, like jumping around and going, you know. And so I just took all these, like a 4-track cassette from, like 4-track stuff that Blackie did.
Yeah.
And just deciphered lyrics, went through it. You couldn't really understand what he was singing, so I had to use like a, intonation of words. So I just wrote it that way, wrote the lyrics out, kind of made them up to how it sounded. Some words I could understand and some phrases, but a lot of it was just kind of made up.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a weird process. And then I was gigging in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, wow.
Which was really hard work. Thrown in the deep end, like with a famous band, a new band with hard-ons guys, and you got the hardcore hard-ons fans who came to the gigs and were just like not impressed.
Really?
At the start, like not impressed with me.
Yeah.
I was too arty.
Right.
You know, not punky. So you could
The
stairs. No, I had short hair,
right.
but I was doing more. I was going more like the Iggy kind of. I don't know, there's some sort of thing like that, or arty kind of thing. But
Iggy, yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot.
What's more punk than Iggy Pop?
Yeah, I know. And but the reception was fucking cold.
Well, yeah, it's a very, very specific sound, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty.
But then Pete from Mass Appeal on drums, he's like a jazz drummer.
Yeah.
So he's doing all this jazz kind of hardcore stuff, swapping between jazz and hardcore, and the audience just didn't know what the fuck was going on. What the fuck is this? So, but then after about 6 months, the penny dropped, and we started just killing it.
Yeah, cool.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, what is this magazine?
It's called Happy Mag.
Well, Happy Mag.
Yeah, hi,
Thank you very much for your time and all the happy people.
It's a Sydney magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't hold that against them.
No, we're not like that.
No.
We're not competitive.